Rangers had a documentary, and this was Hollywood Demons, the dark side of the Power Rangers. Now, this was a very interesting documentary. It didn't really add more to what most of the fandom knew, but people who didn't, and obviously aren't in the Power Ranger fandom, this would have been absolutely huge. And I want to give a big shout out to legendary, wait for it, Daryl, because he let me watch this because for some strange bizarre reason nowhere in the UK actually streamed this, so it was very kind of frustrating trying to find a place to watch this, but I wanted to kind of give my thoughts on it. There were quite a few things in this that I generally was kind of not shocked, I would say taken back, and I think a lot of little things were kind of filled in for people who have heard so many stories about why, say, Austin, Thuy, and Walter walked, and it's just really interesting hearing it from someone else that actually filled in the story, and I'll get to that in a little bit. The main kind of like topics in this, they talked about JDF, they talked about Ricardo Medina Jr, stuff that happened on Mighty Morphing, as well as Thuy's death, and there's quite a lot of stuff that they put in here, which there is some things that I was really, again, like I think maybe 2 parts, maybe 3, I was kind of like taken back. I also kind of think this could have been a 2-parter. I feel like the JDF stuff at the very end, that was kind of a main focus on this, and I feel like that could have been its own episode because they kind of skimmed over quite a lot in my eyes. I feel like they didn't talk about his children, which is Sky and Jacob, as well as some of the stuff that happened on set with him, as well as a few other things. I felt like there was some stuff that they kept back, but it was interesting to kind of see there are things that happened in his life. And there's one thing I will talk about at the end of this video that I generally think was absolutely disgusting, and that was with Jeff Puritt. But yeah, I'll talk about that at the very end of the video. One of the things that got me was Thuy's death, and hearing from Thuy's best friend Angela about what happened that night. Now, I was under the impression that everybody in the car actually died, but finding out that the driver survived, and the fact that Angela took off her seatbelt to then like lean over, and that's when the crash happened, and she became paralyzed from the neck down. And then in this documentary, you see that she's regained some of her motion in her upper body. This is something that I didn't know that happened, and hearing that Thuy didn't have her seatbelt on really kind of got me in this, because I generally thought that she would be the sort of person to wear it. Maybe she was, but this is the one time that she didn't. So please, if you're driving, no matter what, please wear your seatbelt. It is one of the most important things to wear in a car. It does kind of make me think of, if she was still here, what would she be doing? Yeah, one of the other things is that they very barely touch on the Austin's PPP fraud thing that he did. And I thought, if you're talking about the dark side, you would talk a little bit more about it, but it's just kind of over like, oh, he did this, he did this, he did this, there. Like, I generally thought they would kind of go a little bit more in depth in it to talk about what's been covered, what he said. It would have made a little bit more sense, but they just kind of like really went through this really quickly. And again, I generally think that this needed to be a 2-parter. There is a lot of stuff that has happened that with the Rangers themselves that they easily could have talked about. They quickly addressed the whole thing of Walter being the Black Ranger and Thuy being the Yellow Ranger, and the fact is that came down to it. And I was just like, I think that this has been talked about quite a lot, and I know Walter has come out talking about this after people have been saying stuff, and he's absolutely happy that he played the Black Ranger, and I think that's absolutely fine. But I feel like some people try to paint this as a racist thing all the way through. With Audrey popping up was really random to me. I just kind of felt, why? Because, you know, I know she was on the pilot, and I have done a video talking about this. I never released it, so I might release it before this one. But generally, like, hearing her talk about her time and the way that, you know, one guy had heat stroke. Now, I do believe that the whole health and safety for non-union is absolutely shit back then. I think it needed to be completely reformed to make sure that it would have done a lot better. And the fact that one person was just in his underwear, effectively having a heat stroke after he'd been taken out of the putty mask. And the putty mask, when you wear them, is really fucking horrible. It's very tight. You can't really breathe in it that well. But what's really interesting about the entire thing with the guy in the putty mask was the fact that this has never been talked about whatsoever, that I've at least seen, and I've been around for a long time. I've never seen anyone talk about this regardless of the actors, not even the other four that have been in the show. They haven't said anything. And it's just kind of really like weird to me that nothing was said. So I think finding out that at times the Rangers would break bones or that they were badly like hurt, and it was just quickly move on, quickly move on. And I understand at times that you have to keep the show running, but I think that if someone has broken a bone or a leg, then it's not going to be a good thing to do. And there's this one piece of footage that they have Thuy say where she says that she hurt her leg again, and I can understand that she's sitting down from probably most of her scenes to at least recover. But the fact is that there was no proper people on set to kind of help with this, or kind of maybe make it around in other parts of the episode where you don't have to have that person in the American footage and you can just switch to at least the Japanese footage. It's just kind of really weird. But again, I'm guessing because it had to be fast paced, people had to keep going. You couldn't really stop. I'm guessing because of it being non-union, then that's it. Like, you know, it's like, oh, we don't care. If it was union, which I know Jason Font talks about much later on, where, you know, they can't run up some stairs in case that they get hurt. Having it non-union was probably a very bad idea. And again, there's loads of stuff in that one. So yeah, just hearing about the fact that they got hurt. And it's weird how Fox wouldn't have this down for people. Like if you're working on a Fox like production or whatnot, or if you're using your name or whatever, you have to have basic care in the entire thing. So yeah, to me that was very, very weird. One of the biggest things that we've always heard about from Austin and Walter has always been the pay from Mighty Morphing, how Austin originally could be getting more money working at McDonald's, the fact that he was living out of his car, everything like that has been kind of thrown about this. And one of the things that he has said on Fanwood, which he always goes on about, is the fact that all the Rangers were kind of like a unit, like they were meant to be together. And it's been disproven that obviously not. You know, David Yost at a convention said that that never happened. You know, the others have said that never happened. And the fact is, one of the key elements which they misled everyone, they were not transparent on, was the fact that they asked for money from the toy sales, like a percentage. And this really made me go, huh, why haven't you talked about that, Austin? Why have you never said that it was all about getting a percentage of the toys? Now, the main thing that I see from this is it's a huge thing, because even if they ask for 1% of the toy sales, that comes from, I think they made over like 1.1 billion or over $1 billion. So that means that they would be getting roughly around about, say, $10 million. And that's quite a lot of change. That's not just something at that time in the 90s, at least. Well, it is now anyway, but everywhere, not just in the 90s. But knowing that they would get, say, a percentage, so that's 3% for just those three, then you would have had Jason, David Frank, and all the others wanting a percentage, and then the others wanting a percentage. It's lucky as it blew up as much as it did. But considering that you're going in now, and we're hearing this from people who worked on the show, you asked for a percentage of the toy sales, yet you've never said that anywhere. So this is what I generally found really, really interesting, that adds to the story. So now I question a lot of the stuff that happens with Austin when he talks about this. And again, he's talked about it in a video on his channel on Fanwood, or a company that he works for. So this documentary also paints Thuy as the person to start all of this off when we know it's Austin. So I don't know why the documentary tried to paint Thuy as the one who started this all off, because so you had Thuy go on stage and you had Saban there, you had the higher ups at Fox, and also the affiliates of Fox, which is basically other networks that would want to put Power Rangers on their networks. And they gave a speech, mainly Thuy, and she broke down due to stress and said how bad Fox was for not giving them more money and that they deserve to be paid more for their work. And hearing this is something completely new. Nothing like this has ever been said whatsoever. And I'm just kind of curious why they tried to paint her in the bad light. But also hearing that she ran off stage after and then hugged Jeff, and she knew she was fucked. She knew that the others were fucked, and that was it. And I think that if they had just stayed for the long game and like carried on, I generally think that they would have reaped the benefits and they could have been in a lot more and they could have got more money later on. But I feel that because of this was Austin's way, I feel like they just saw how much money was coming in and they wanted a piece of that pie and they didn't get it. I generally do think stress played into a lot of this at the same time. You're on set, you're working hard, you're working more hours than most, you're hurt at times. And I feel like all of this stress and pressure just built up and it just exploded. And I feel like that was my main takeaway from it, is the stress fucked them up as well. Another key point in this was that Nakia came on and she was talking about how much money that they got paid. She got paid $750 per episode. I'm gonna guess like maybe the Rangers from Mighty Morphin got paid $600 per episode, and that's still quite a lot of money. So when you kind of times it up, let's say 750, you times it by 60, it equals at $45,000. That's quite a lot of money for, you know, back then. So it's kind of interesting to see, like, would they have been paid every couple of weeks, every month, or was it like, here is your entire amount of money, you take it and then that's it, you're working for us for a year. So I feel like there's a lot that Austin and Walter really haven't talked about. And the fact is that they've been not very transparent about this, and that really does irritate me quite a lot. So yeah, it just feels like now that we know how much money that they made, because we can roughly base it off what Nakia got paid, then we know like if Austin and Walter and all that are lying. Then they moved on to Ricardo Medina Jr. And like the first part where they turn around and he blatantly lies on set, talking about how he said one line, and then when he got pulled up about it, he was like, I never said that, you know, I said it correctly. And then they say like, here's the recording for it, and he's like, I didn't say that. And I was blatantly like, what the fuck? Like literally they have you on like tape, they can play it back for you to watch, and you're like, nah, that didn't happen. Like I generally think that he was just like, I wasn't on set, I've just stood here. And it's like, Ricardo, we've been filming for 3 hours, what the fuck? And then it's just like, I've just got here, and he's got his like his crystal saber or whatever in his hand, and like he's like, but I've just got a donut. And it's like, what? It's like, that's a crystal saber, that's a prop, it's a donut, it's not that. Like that's how I kind of saw that part. And then it just leads into what he was and what he did. And this is something that some of the facts that we've heard over time, like the sword being used was a katana, and now we find out that it's a medieval sword. That was something that I generally was just like, oh, okay, I thought it was a katana. So finding out that a girl he went on a date with ghosted him because he said something weird, and then called him back much later on, like 2 years I think later, and he went to the ranch. And what I found very weird was the fact that Ricardo was like, you can't talk to my girlfriend. They stayed in the room all the time, and it's like, you can't talk to her, you can't see her, whatever. And then it's just like, oh, people could only talk to her through a window. I felt that was very, very weird. And then finding out a lot more about what happened with him not leaving the ranch that he was meant to like help with training dogs, because he said that he was a dog trainer. And then all of a sudden says like, I'm not going to help, and if you dare get rid of me or try to evict me, I'm going to release all the dogs out into the wild. And I found that really like, fucking what? Like, why would you do that? You know, you're not doing the job that you're being paid for. So yeah, that kind of really like got me there. With his prison sentence, I thought he would have been in a lot longer. So when they were saying like, oh, it was like little pokes with the swords to get the guy away, because I thought it was a roommate, but it was the brother of the girl who owned the ranch. And I was just like, oh shit, so I didn't know that. And then suddenly hearing the poking thing, and it's actually, no, it had an exit wound, so he was rammed through to kill him. And I was like, holy shit, what the hell? And I know that if you want to listen to the audio parts, because they use very small parts, Henry Resilient actually talked about this and actually did a live stream talking about it. So go check it out, his channel. I'll link it down below in the description as well as the top pinned comments. If you want, you can listen to the audio tape as well as his commentary on it. Then we move on to the JDF thing, and they talk a lot about his past life, which most of us knew. If the fandom, obviously the fandom's going to know all about it, but hearing some of these things again was a little bit more, and I was just like, oh darn, fucking hell. I do generally think that you could have had an entire episode dedicated to this and it would have been 10 times better, because this does take a majority of it. So for me personally, I much would have preferred a standalone episode talking about him and his entire life. So kind of wrapping all of this up, I generally think that they could have done a lot more deeper into this. There's a lot more that they could have talked about. You have David Yost and him being bullied for his sexuality. I think that would have been a big thing to have him come on and talk about it. You also have Renee, who was the mentor in Power Rangers Samurai. You could have talked about that because that was a huge thing going on. And even about the David Hector Jr. stuff. Now, I know that he pushed the elderly vet. He went to prison for it. Now, this documentary could have been filmed way before that, but I think that you could have looked into some of his past and the way that Hector has been. That would have been a really good thing as well to add on. Or you could do this episode and talk about it all now and have it at the very end of the Hollywood Demons. But I think what this episode does is it shows you a little bit about what happened in the Power Ranger franchise that people who aren't into this will actually watch and go, oh shit, I remember that back in the day. And it kind of introduces them to all of this shit that's going on. So I mentioned earlier that what really annoyed me was that Jeff, who worked on the show originally, worked with JDF, and I had to go back to listen to it just to make sure 100%. But hearing that Jeff and JDF had a suicide pact, that really annoyed me because of the way that JDF has been and what we've learned now due to his certain struggles and his mental issues, his mental health issues. Talking to someone that, hey, let's just finish our work now, and then when we're done, we'll do this. I feel like it's a horrible thing to even entertain. And the fact is that Jeff says that he didn't want to be in a hospital bed all shriveled up. And the fact is that they would both get up one more time. Jeff would do all the things that he wanted to do in life, and then this is what would happen. And I think that's absolutely horrible. I generally think that you shouldn't be entertaining that idea. And the fact is that you both should have gone to seek proper help from a proper trained professional rather than say, hey, when we're like 80, 90, we'll do it then, or just before, or whatnot. And I generally did not like this. It just generally annoyed the shit out of me. And I don't know why he decided to tell that story, because now you look like an absolute cunt. There's a lot of stuff in this that I highly recommend that you go watch if you can. I feel like there is a ton of things that if you didn't pick up or you didn't know, then this is great. If you just want to kind of look at it and go, holy shit, this is what's gone on. Or if you're just generally like curious about it. It now brings more light to Austin and Walter, and I hope that they get asked about the percentage of the toys. I just want to know why they never talked about that investors meeting that they had with Saban, as well as like the Fox executives and Rupert Murdoch as well. Like, didn't think his name would pop up, but I would generally like them to talk about it. But yeah, it holds some weight. It's worth going to have a watch and just see what you think about it. Anyway, I am going to end it there. What do you think about this? Have you seen it? Let me know down below in the comments and let's discuss. And while you're down there, why not hit the like button and subscribe? I'm trying to reach 30,000 subscribers by the end of the year, so I know that we can definitely smash this goal. And while you're at it, why not check out the channel memberships, where there is exclusive content that is coming, as well as early access to some of the videos on the channel. Thank you very much for listening and watching, and I'll catch you in the next video. I want to say a big thank you to all my Patreon supporters, and I wanted to shout out Kimono Cat. Your help goes a long way to help support the channel, and if you want to help support the channel, the links to my Patreon and channel memberships are listed below in the description.
あらあら、 チャンネルをサポートしてくれてありがとうございます。チャンネル登録、高評価お願いします。以下のリンクから商品を入手することができます。